I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about 5 mistakes that will drive them away.
And drive them away quickly, so pay attention.
You know, there are certain behaviors that are really going to kill attraction. And when you learn to avoid these mistakes and replace them with positive behaviors, it's going to be a lot more likely to keep the attraction stronger and longer, right?
Yeah, we have to be aware of the ways that we're treating our partner, and some of these are sneaky.
You know, a lot of times people don't think about these things when they get into a relationship. They just think, oh, I like them. I think they're attractive. I think they're pretty. I think they're funny. And they don't think about all of the things that it's going to take to care for that connection in the long run. If you don't consider beyond the initial stages of lust and excitement, it's going to fade. It's going to fall apart.
Yeah, it's hard to be able to balance somebody's fears, somebody's triggers, somebody's traumas and experiences. It's hard to balance that. And the closer you get with somebody, the more that those are going to come out.
So today we're going to be looking at some of the things that can really drive somebody away. It'll turn them off. It'll lower their attraction. It'll lower their interest level, and it's going to be a lot more likely to lead to a breakup. Now, if you're trying to re-attract an ex, it's also important that you're aware of these things, because if you make these mistakes when they come back, they're not going to want to fix things. They're going to be like, all right, I've had enough. I've seen enough. So we got 5 ones that we see all the time.
Right. The first one is expecting your partner's needs to be the same as yours. And this is something that I really do think we do with good intention, right? We have certain needs. Maybe we're somebody who's a little bit more anxious and we need a lot more reassurance. We want that quality time with our partner. If we could fuse with them, we would, right? And so we just assume that they also need the same thing too. And so we act like that. And sometimes we can be to them smothering. Maybe they have the exact opposite needs. And this is why we teach about attachment styles all of the time. We have hundreds of videos on it, maybe thousands at this point, just to help explain how these different needs are developed in a person. And so when you expect your partner to have the same thoughts, beliefs, feelings, needs as you, then it can come off as pressure to them. And it can feel very uncomfortable. It can also seem like there's a certain expectation that's placed on them that they might not even know about, that may not have even been communicated. There's a lot of misunderstandings that happened. Well, I thought you would have wanted this. No, this is the exact opposite of what I want, right? So
yeah, it's what you want, not what I want. You're just trying to force on me what you want.
Right. So we have to appreciate our differences. This is really what makes the relationship. When you think about it, them being individual people and having their own thoughts, beliefs, opinions, ideas, that's part of what attracted you in the first place, is that there were some things that were different, that were enticing, that you're curious about.
And one of the things that Harville Hendricks talks about is otherness, appreciating the other person's otherness, and that they have these other needs than you. But what happens is, and I'm getting into the deep end of the pool here, is, and this is kind of Freudian, it's like when you are smothering that person and you're trying to like force away the things that they like and that are their personality, it feels like you're in some way killing them, right? And so this is like deep Freudian stuff where he talked annihilation fears, right? So it feels like you're trying to make their existence go away, gone, because you're trying to make them like you. It's like you're a blob and you're trying to suck them into your blob and make them into part of the blob. Well, then they're like, no, I'm my own blob over here. Stop trying to force me into yours.
Yeah, it's like smothering their authenticity.
Yeah.
It's like trying to take away their personality. And so letting them be who they are and being able to grow acceptance for that is really important. Another thing that can happen is telling your partner that you should do this or should do that, or having these kind of set in stone expectations. It's good to have standards, do not get me wrong, right? It's good to have standards and certain expectations in a relationship, but that can be a slippery slope into control if we're not aware of what we're doing and what we're asking. So sometimes we'll say things to our partner like, oh, you should do this, or you should do that, or we should be spending more time together, or you should, write me, I don't know, a love letter every day if you really care.
You shouldn't go to the softball game on Friday. You shouldn't go to the hockey game with your friends next week.
Right. And a quick way to just change that is to ask for what you're needing. A lot of times it can be so hard to be vulnerable and say, hey, I would just really like this. Or, hey, this is something that matters to me. But
taking away somebody's individuality, who they are as a person, it's like, it feels like you're trying to destroy them in a deep kind of way, right?
It's like, let me go to the softball game. You're killing me.
You're killing me. It's like Independent George and Seinfeld. You're killing Independent George. But it's important for you to allow them to be who they are. If they had a hobby or an interest when you met them, don't get annoyed at them for doing that hobby and interest that they were doing at the time where you met them. That was part of what made them who they are that you liked. But we try and change them over time and take away that thing that made them unique.
And this leads perfectly into our next point.
Which is?
Trying to control them. We need to control everything.
People hate to be controlled. Think about somebody controlling you. Think about maybe when you were little or younger and your parents are trying to control you. Some of you are still getting controlled by your parents, let's be honest, right? But think about how that really annoys you and you're just like, oh my gosh, stop it. Let me make my own decisions. Stop trying to force me to do stuff that you want me to do. Nobody likes that feeling. People like to feel free. People like to feel like they are making their own choices, their own decisions, and they have control over their life. And again, this kind of goes back into what we were saying with Harville Hendrix, right? Where you're not allowing them to be themselves. They don't feel free. They don't feel alive. And you always want to love somebody in a way where they do feel free, right? And some people can get downright angry, hostile, stubborn when you try and force them to do something, and they'll actually do the opposite just to exert that independence.
Yeah. To rebel.
Yeah, it's like the more you try and tell them to do something, the more they're like, no, now I'm not going to do it just out of spite. Just because you're trying to force me to do something I don't want to do.
Right. It kind of sucks the joy out of it.
We all have free will, and we like to feel like we can live in that way. Getting angry at your boyfriend because he wants to play video games with his friends and trying to stop that is only going to make him angry and resentful that he can't spend some time with his friends. What would be a nice way of maybe asking them for what you need?
Hey, I would like to spend more quality time. Can we set apart some time to go on a nice date?
A perfectly reasonable request.
And it can even be more intense than that. You can say, hey, I've really been feeling neglected lately. I think we should talk about this. If we're able to focus on what we're feeling and what we're needing, then it comes across authentic. It's coming from us. It's not coming from a place of I'm trying to change you, force you, or control you. Now, how your partner responds to that is what's telling, right? Because there is that part of us, and maybe also depending on the way that we were raised, that we think, well, if I just tell this person what to do, then they should do it because I'm feeling hurt.
Yep.
Right? Versus saying, well, I'm going to express to them how I'm feeling, what my experience is, what's important to me, maybe some solutions that I can think of, and how they respond is going to show me, are they able to have empathy? Are they able to listen? Are they also able to problem solve with me?
Yep. And the ability that you're able to do this with your partner is going to show how secure or insecure you are, whether you realize it or not.
Right.
Especially if they haven't done anything wrong, right? If they violated trust, that's one thing.
Right.
But we're going to get to violation of trust in a minute.
All right. The next one is poor communication. So this drives people away for a lot of the same reason. Over time, it can become very exhausting, right? Your partner doesn't always want to have to guess what you need. Yes, it's nice to have a partner who's attuned to you, who can anticipate your need. It's nice when you go to the gas station and they come in from the convenience store, they have your favorite coffee in hand, you're like, wow, this person gets me, this feels so good, right? But for them to guess what's wrong all the time, for them to guess every little minute thing that you might need, and then that gets exhausting over time. It does. And so you can't make your partner read your mind. Right?
Intuit,
yes,
as Margaret used to say, intuit what you need. You have to communicate. Don't have this as, you should know. You should know. I used to do a joke in my act about that. You should know. No, tell me. Okay? Yes, there are times where it would be nice if somebody had a better idea than others, but you have to understand that people are not going to read your mind. And if you think that, you better take a good hard look at yourself and your relationship with your caregivers, because they probably didn't meet your needs, and now you're probably expecting your partner to be your caregiver.
And a lot of times you'll see that kind of dynamic, especially when there's control and power, and one person kind of becomes that parent that's telling you what to do and not do, right? And then the other person just feels controlled and feels more like a child, infantilized. So just be aware of these kind of dynamics. The way you communicate is really important, and not to say that, you have to teach common sense to somebody, right? This is all within reason and all within the context of your relationship, but we're saying it's important to let somebody know what you're feeling and be vulnerable with them.
Yep. Okay, another big one. Being disinterested in somebody, okay? You may not really appreciate the things that they like or that they're interested in yourself. However, if you really want to have a strong connection with somebody, you need to be curious about them. What is it that they like? What is it that is interesting to them, and why? The more you show a genuine curiosity into that person, the more they're going to feel connected to you and cared about. I mentioned Harville Hendrix earlier. I remember something from one of his books years ago that was talking about, one partner liked rock collecting, and it's like, the other partner was like, oh gosh, what's wrong? What's worse than rock collecting? But he said, okay, we'll get curious about it. What is it about rock collecting that they like? Why do they like it? What's interesting about it? Just be curious. And yeah, you may not really want to be into rock collecting after that, but at least you might have some understanding of, and appreciation of why they do. And that can really change the dynamic.
Right. And I'm thinking about, there's a Dale Carnegie book that talks about people skills. I think it's one of his earlier books. But in it, he talks about an experience of a person sitting next to somebody else on a plane. And the other person is yapping away, and all he's doing is just asking questions, right? He hasn't even said a word about himself. And at the end of the plane ride, the plane lands and they're about to head their separate ways. The other person, the stranger, had said to him, oh my gosh, you are just the most interesting person that I know. This was such a fascinating conversation, right? And so his point in that is that people love to talk about themselves. Yes, it's also nice when you get a chance to share and be vulnerable and communicate all the things that we've been saying, but also that curiosity, it lets somebody shine. It says, okay, wait a minute. Okay, I have this moment here to tell you what I'm about, to tell you what I've been thinking and what's on my mind. So it's a really great connection point to have this kind of reciprocal conversation.
Yeah. So when your partner shows interest in something, you want to be genuinely interested in it because you care about them. And if it's important to them, it should be important to you because they care about it, right? And if you're not, they're going to want to find somebody that is. Why would they want to spend their time with somebody who doesn't care about them or what they like or what they want to do?
Right.
Right.
All right, another big one, this is foundational, is dishonesty. Dishonesty and lack of character will drive somebody away, and I'm a person who believes the truth will reveal itself eventually, whether it's from your own mouth or from circumstances. So this is something that's really big because emotional safety really is at the core of what makes relationships work, right? And if you think about all the relationships in your life that work, it's because you have an idea of what a person is and you believe that person to be who they say they are, right? And you've had experiences with them, positive experiences, affirming experiences with them. And so Trust is so, so, so critical. So when you put your trust in somebody, what you're really doing is you're putting your life in their hands, right? And when you think about trust, trust is so foundational for our mental health because our mental health depends on having some kind of coherence, right? Some kind of predictability. And so when there's a lack of trust, it messes with the very thing that keeps us sane, which is our belief system, right? Our beliefs about reality.
And I think in a deep biological sense, it makes us feel safe, right? Because if you think biologically, our trust in our tribe, in the people that cared for us, thousands of years ago, however you want to look at it, right? That made us feel like, okay, we're safe here because they're out there taking care of us. But if they're not, we can't trust them to take care of us. We could wind up dying because of how dangerous it is.
Right.
Life obviously was very different even 500 years ago.
Right. And when trust is broken, you have to think about the emotional repercussions of that. People get anxious, right? They start to be a lot more hypervigilant.
Death, right? You're afraid for your life.
Right. And even in a here and now sense, people want to feel like they're respected by their partner. They want to feel like they're getting an authentic person on the other side, right? And so it can keep us hypervigilant, safety, emotional safety, sense of predictability. All of these things are so, so, so critical.
Yeah, I mean, for example, if somebody's cheating, okay, they're going to be more likely to leave you for somebody else, right? And think, oh, well, I'm happier with this new person. Not only that, they are potentially putting you at risk for an STD, and sometimes those can be fatal, right? So there is safety in the cheating sense and the aspect of that, because if you abandon me, I could die. Or if you cheat on me and come back and give me something, it could give me some serious illness or something like that.
And on the flip side, there is something so attractive about somebody who's consistent, somebody with integrity, somebody who has character, because it takes a lot of sense of self and confidence in order to be honest, right? And a lot of people don't connect these two concepts about transparency and someone's self-esteem, but they are so closely tied, right? The better we feel about ourselves, the less afraid we are of people leaving if we are honest. And if you have that mindset of, if I'm honest and somebody leaves, then that's their choice. You want people who are going to be around who accept you authentically. So.
And, a lot of people are dishonest because they think it's going to be the only thing that makes you stay. But the truth is that they're choosing to stay based on a lie and not who you are actually presenting to be.
Right.
So, lying to avoid somebody getting upset at you is likely going to make them more upset at you than just the lie, because now you have the action of what you've done and the lie on top of it, and now I can't trust you for both of those reasons, right?
Right. And there's better options than just telling the truth or not telling the truth, right? You can keep things vague. You can save conversations for a later time. So, consider all your options. Having to lie to appease somebody in the moment might seem like a great idea. Sometimes for some of you, it's kind of like that knee-jerk reaction. You might have needed to lie as a kid for your own safety. So maybe there's some traits that have followed throughout your life. Maybe you needed to lie in order to get your needs met. And so just be considerate of these things, because once, truth reveals itself, it's going to put you in a much more difficult position.
Yeah, and even one small lie really hurts the idea that we have of this connection being safe and, trustworthy. And even if it's a stupid lie, it just makes you feel like, well, if you're lying about that, how many other things are you lying about? So you really got to be careful about telling the truth with people, because even one small lie makes all these other thoughts and fears pop up into somebody's mind about you. And then abandonment issues are going to come up, and anxiety is going to come up in them. And then it's going to lead to them losing emotional self-control, lashing out, fights, and then a breakup. So, it's far better to be honest about situations than to lie about them because of all of these other reasons. And there's so many more that we could get into,
Right.
but you're getting the gist of it.
So be aware of these different things that we've mentioned. These are things that can cause people to not want to continue. And just be mindful of how you treat people overall, right? So we've just got to do our best.
That's right. Work, do the work, do the work, do the work, do the work. Okay? I cannot emphasize that enough. Don't just watch no contact videos. We have a playlist, Be a Master in Relationships. Watch all those videos. Watch the Understanding Attachment Styles playlist. Go beyond no contact, because that's really going to get you to where you want to be.
Exactly.
And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Zoom calls. Victoria is also available to do Zoom calls.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name at the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.